ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nihilist Wrestling episode number 15. I am your host, Ash Manson, and oh yeah, we have some things to talk about today. We are a couple days out from AEW / New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door, so we're going to go over thoughts and predictions for that. Triple H announced WWE is going to be headed over to Netflix. He didn't just mention Raw, but he said eventually, as media deals come up, that SmackDown and the PLEs are going to be headed over to Netflix too. And more importantly, he announced that Netflix is going to be free of censorship. So what does that open up for WWE? We're definitely going to talk about that, and of course, I think what is indisputably the most compelling thing happening in the world of professional wrestling right now. Yes, I saw that Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy / Taylor Rotunda. I don't even know what we're calling him in this context anymore. But yes, I saw that promo and it cut deep. So let's get right into that. When I first started watching NXT, I can't remember exactly what year it is, maybe 2013, maybe 12, I want to say. Bo Dallas was the NXT champion. The first notable feud that I can remember was between Bo Dallas and, at the time, Big E Langston. Bo was the heel champion. He was the NXT champion at the time, and he was the heel that didn't understand that he was the heel. His line was, "All you have to do is Bo-Lieve," and one of the things he did is he would call his opponents a good kid. And, he's only 34 years old now. Over a decade ago, he was one of the youngest guys in NXT at the time. It was hilarious. My point being, I've always been a Bo-Liever. And when they called him up to the main roster, I think they made him a little bit more simple, and he was just kind of like a motivational speaker. Not that that wasn't a part of his NXT gimmick, it just didn't translate quite as well, but still he was able to get certain aspects of his gimmick over, like the Bo Train. Of course we remember the Bo Train at the end. He'd go like this, raise his hands, and run around the ring. I remember being at a Raw after WrestleMania, and I think Bo was part of the social outcasts at the time, and the crowd was chanting, "We want Bo Train!" I think Bo Dallas, Taylor Rotunda has always been he's been very good at what he does, whatever he's given. But we saw some range out of him on Raw that we had never really seen before. And I'm not necessarily surprised by it, but just seeing it like that, like Uncle Howdy. We see Uncle Howdy, and he asks, I think, I saw on YouTube or on Facebook, WWE actually used the name Bo Dallas. So we're going to say Uncle Howdy starts talking to Bo Dallas and says, "Who are you?" And Bo says, "I'm nobody." Uncle Howdy's like, "There you are." And then, of course, the next big question is, how did it feel when your brother died? They went there, they're going it felt almost a little too dark for the PG product, but they just went there, and I think that Bo Dallas gave the answer that Taylor Rotunda was feeling. Nothing else in the world would ever matter. Just kill me now. That fucking stung. I can't even imagine. I don't have a brother, but let's say if my sister died, for example, how things would feel. I can't even begin to just think about how the man Taylor Rotunda must be feeling still. And he was very honest with him. With us. He was just he just went there, he put it all on the table, and then Uncle Howdy said, "Don't you feel like you're exploiting your brother's legacy?" and he went on to express like that Bray Wyatt or Wyndham Rotunda was his hero. He was everything that Bo/Taylor ever wanted to be, and he doesn't want the world to forget about everything that Bray Wyatt stood for. And I think basically, and then he goes on to this like tangent, like they all wanted to forget. Now I don't necessarily think that's true, you know, but it's, you know, it's a story, it's art, you know. Of course we didn't want to forget about Bray Wyatt. I certainly didn't want to forget about Bo Dallas or Eric Rowan. Dexter Lumis and Joe Gacy are two of my favorite acts in WWE. Nikki Cross has always been a very interesting character. Like I didn't want to forget about any of them. I don't think collectively us, the WWE fans, like wanted to forget about any of them. But of course we understand that Bo Dallas, the character, and of course Taylor, the man, are grieving, and sometimes they're irrational. And in his infinite grief, he's convinced that the world is just moving on, like going like about our way without any acknowledgement of Bray Wyatt and everything that he stood for. And in that grief, in that frustration, Bo has created the Wyatt Six, and we saw what the Wyatt Six did. They absolutely they tore apart the gorilla area and just made it look like a scene out of a horror movie. That's what they did to remind everyone that they're there, that they're here, as Uncle Howdy said, as Raw a couple of weeks ago went off air. It was like the first time we saw the Wyatt Six, I was just like, that was one of the best pro wrestling segments I have ever seen in my life. And mind you, I have been watching for a very long time. We're talking like, you know, over 25 years I've been watching pro wrestling, and that was one of the best segments I've ever seen. And to follow it the next week with that promo that Bo cut and Uncle Howdy, like, oh my god, I am here for every last minute of this. This is, I know this saying is kind of cliche, but it was cinema. It felt real because it probably was, if we're being honest. And like, they gave us a lot. Like, that promo was, you know, I'm not complaining about the amount of Wyatt Six we got on the last episode. We did see Nikki Cross present Michael Cole with that videotape, and, you know, we saw that amazing like promo, backstage vignette, whatever we're calling it. But we're still like really wanting more. There's so many more questions to be answered. What's everyone's like individual motivation for wanting to be a part of the Wyatt Six? Because like, apart from Eric Rowan, Nikki Cross, Dexter Lumis, you know, Joe Gacy, all of them, they were not affiliated with Bray in any way. But lest we forget, first let's talk about how when Chad Gable entered the arena, well, not the arena, but while he's like in the parking lot and he's walking past the production truck, you see a picture of Alexa Bliss. And WWE has been doing like such a good job of like making us pay attention to all the little details that might actually mean something. Like, if this was maybe a year ago, I would probably think that, like, just, you know, looking at pictures of, you know, of, it's like a picture on a production truck, that just might be, you know, trying too hard to see something. But the way they've really like dialed things up and just made these stories so much more complex since Triple H has had full control of creative, it really does have you analyzing every little thing, and you have to know that they know that we're going to notice that picture of Alexa Bliss. And I said before that those three, Loomis, Gacy, and Cross, had no relation to Bray Wyatt necessarily in the past, but Nikki Cross was actually WWE Women's Tag Team Champions with Alexa Bliss. So that like alliance, if Alexa were to come back and be the sixth member of the Wyatt Six, that alliance wouldn't necessarily be coming out of nowhere. So that makes sense. And in the case, Eric Rowan is very self-explanatory. He was an original Wyatt family member, and because of that, I'm a little bit confused about why Braun Strowman isn't involved. He wasn't an original member, but he was part of that first incarnation of the Wyatt family. But that just kind of opens the door to future interactions with Braun Strowman, which I'm sure will be interesting. So we don't need to explain Eric Rowan's involvement in the Wyatt Six, but I do think that Joe Gacy and Dexter Loomis at least have to explain themselves a little bit, and Dexter isn't exactly he's not one to talk a whole lot. I believe the only time I've seen him speak on WWE programming was when he was getting married to Indy Hartwell in NXT. But it would be interesting if they can at least convey to us in some way why everyone has choose to align themselves with Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy. I could talk about this subject for a very long time. It was so good. 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100. These first 2 weeks of the Wyatt Six being in existence have been perfect. I couldn't possibly ask for anything better, and I cannot wait to see where this goes. So we're just going to leave it at that for right now. So Triple H stated on the Pat McAfee show that over time, Raw, SmackDown, and the PLEs, including WrestleMania and of course NXT, will all in time be transferred to Netflix. I'm a little bit confused because I thought that WWE just struck a media deal to bring SmackDown back to the USA Network. Maybe the plan is that they're going to ride that deal out, and they're saying ahead of time that they're going to move it to Netflix after the USA deal. Who knows? Well, let's just focus on Raw for the time being, because we know that is coming in 2025, and 2025 isn't as far away as it may seem. So he also mentioned that, as I said at the top of the show, that on Netflix, we're not going to be dealing with any censorship. So the crowd starts chanting, "Holy shit," we don't have to have those awkward bleeps, and if somebody's cutting a promo over it, you don't hear a second here and there of what they're saying. If The Rock comes on the program, he's going to do what he's going to do. And I also I'm thinking about the things that the Wyatt Six has been doing in their short time on Raw. Their debut looked like a massacre. That certainly wasn't PG. And it just kind of seems like WWE is taking some liberties with the PG rating. I guess maybe under the understanding that I guess Raw is moving off of the USA Network. But what I've come to understand, and I've heard it put this way, and I can't remember who exactly says it, but I believe that the not having profanity and previously not having blood on the show was more of a WWE thing necessarily than it was a USA Network thing, because I have watched episodes of Mr. Robot, for example, and they're dropping F-bombs left and right on cable television. So it's not like the network is not allowing it. I just think that WWE was committed to being a PG product, so because of the image that perpetuates to their shareholders and all that. But there are significant limitations, and there always have been with the PG format. And we have seen, like I've been saying, they've been taking liberties with that rating, and it has really produced some of the more compelling moments in like the past 20 plus years. We're talking like since like the dying days of the Attitude Era. Like, we've seen some of the most compelling WWE moments in recent history. So I couldn't be more happy. I mean, the Attitude Era, like, of course, I grew up during that time period, right? I have very romantic notions of what the Attitude Era was and all that, but I also know that a lot of it, when you're watching it back, doesn't necessarily age well. I'm going to specifically point to like how women were utilized on WWF television. That was they were basically reduced to eye candy and bra and panties matches, and they would be constantly berated by their male counterparts. And like, I don't want to go back to any of that. But some of the edgier stuff that they did, the swearing, the blood, and all that, I think that's a nice little spice to put in there. You don't want to do it excessively because I think it loses its value, but it definitely just kind of it makes the presentation more cool. It makes it edgier. Of course, I'm a grown ass adult male. I appreciate the more mature kind of presentation rather than the PG one. I think they still have to be cognizant of the fact that there is a younger audience that watches WWE. There's still lots of kids that watch it. I don't know how exactly you tread that line, but again, I was growing up like during the Attitude Era. I was a teenager at the time, and I loved all the sexual references and the profanity and the violence and all that. So, I mean, I'm not saying that kids don't necessarily like it. They just, now that they're a publicly traded company, they gotta worry about it a little bit more, well, a lot more than they used to. And like when AEW first came into existence, they would definitely take advantage of the fact that they weren't a PG product, and you'd see lots of swearing, cowboy shit chants. Shit was a very common word said on television. Of course, like eventually the networks like TNT and TBS started to crack down a little bit on them, say, hey, can you like dial back the swearing a little bit? But WWE doesn't have to worry about that because they're on Netflix, and Netflix is a global platform. So they're gonna reach like all kinds of different markets that maybe there was like limitations on the cable TV deals, and they don't have to worry about that so much anymore. So I just hope that now, like, SmackDown is not going to be on Netflix, at least right away. It's going to USA. Raw will be on Netflix. I just hope that we can put the nail in the coffin of the PG era. I honestly think that WWE, until recently, was not so great for the past almost 20 years. It was hit and miss for that time period. I think, again, and maybe I'm biased because that's when I grew up, but since the dying days of the Attitude Era, like ever since then, maybe since like, I don't know, like a point in time I like to point to is the Invasion pay-per-view. WWF versus WCW versus ECW Invasion pay-per-view. When that flopped, I believe that was the start of the decline of WWE, and by 2003, I think it was like nowhere near as good as it used to be. And then you usher in the PG era, what was it, 2006 or 7, and it was like, I don't know. I still enjoyed wrestling, but I always had to qualify my love for wrestling, saying, you know what, it wasn't as good as it once was, but I still like it. Now, I don't think I have to qualify it like that anymore. I can just say, hey, wrestling is fucking great. WWE has been doing pretty good. AEW, I think, has consistently done very good since they've been on television. So I'm hoping, again, we're going to just hammer that nail in the coffin of the PG era. Make some more compelling content from now on. I'm looking forward to what we see on Netflix. And now we got Forbidden Door coming up on Sunday, so we're going to talk about that a little. I am looking forward to AEW Forbidden Door, and I don't want you to misconstrue what I'm about to say. Maybe even more than I'm looking forward to AEW Forbidden Door, I'm kind of looking forward to Forbidden Door being over with. Because, and I know I'm repeating myself if I got some like repeat watchers, but I know my channel's very small, so the majority of people stumbling across this video are probably hearing me say this for the first time. Like, AEW, when they're doing Forbidden Door, they're relying a lot upon guys that are not going to be on the program in a week. So, because they have all these New Japan guys that they need to build the show around, it kind of stops the momentum of a lot of the stories and programs that they have going forward because they need to concentrate on promoting this pay-per-view. I'm kind of looking forward to AEW putting Forbidden Door in the rear view so they can kind of just get back on track with some of the pretty good programs that they had building, and there is still some continuity because they're having some matches that don't have anything to do with New Japan Pro Wrestling, but yeah, it just kind of is what it is. Forbidden Door is like a novelty one-off pay-per-view, and I'm sure the matches are going to be excellent, and I'm looking forward to seeing the talent from New Japan stepping into a mostly AEW ring. We're just going to go line by line for the announced match card, and I'm just going to give you my thoughts and predictions. Let's see, I have it up here on my second screen. What we got here? The Learning Tree. Chris Jericho, Big Bill, and Brian Keith versus Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata. I love the team of Hook, Samoa Joe, and Shibata. Just the banter between Samoa Joe and Hook has just been funny. And then, of course, Shibata's I don't know, Google Translate style. I'll hit play and say something in English, though we know he doesn't actually speak English. That's actually been pretty funny. And if you've watched any of my content in recent weeks, you know that I love the Learning Tree. Of course, Jericho tried to recruit Minoru Suzuki to be their partner, but it seems like Suzuki instead wants Jericho one-on-one at Forbidden Door. It's actually unclear to me, if this match is still happening. Maybe I missed something, but yeah, I don't know that this match is happening, so I'm not going to give a hope or prediction. Maybe that could have been made a little bit more clear to me by AEW and to the audience at large. We're just going to move on to Bryan Danielson versus Shingo Takagi. I don't think I said his name right. I'm actually not overly familiar with him, and that's kind of the problem you're going to have with a lot of the American crowd, is we're not overly familiar. I loosely follow New Japan. I read stuff about them, but a lot of these wrestlers I'm just not overly familiar with. I think, of course, Danielson is my hope and prediction because this is an Owen Hart Cup tournament match. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for Shingo to win that unless he's going to be on AEW television for a while. And again, they're just kind of booking them in themselves into a corner with that one, but I'm sure it will be a good match. And we have MJF versus Hechicero. That's this match I'm looking forward to. You got very different styles and all that. I think it's almost a no-brainer that MJF wins this. Henchicero has had no problem like jobbing out to AEW people on AEW television, and that's kind of the bind they're in. This is, I know they say it's like AEW X NJPW, but it's mostly an AEW show. It's in America, so MJF's gonna win that, I think. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy. This one I could probably go either way as far as who's going to win, but I'm going to say my hope and prediction is going to be Orange Cassidy wins that, and that will be an entertaining match. Again, nice clash of styles there as well. IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match, Jon Moxley versus Tetsuya Naito. That's actually like, I could see Naito winning this and taking the belt back to New Japan. That would actually make a lot of sense. Of course, I've enjoyed seeing the New Japan, the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship on AEW television. But I think with all the wins that AEW is going to be getting over New Japan, if my predictions are correct, we might see Naito sneak out the win over Moxley on that one. That will also be an interesting match. This next one, Timeless Tony Storm, and this is for the AEW World Championship versus Mina Shirakawa. I think Mina Shirakawa is very entertaining. I have very much enjoyed the little love triangle with Mariah May and all that. But again, because this is for the AEW World Championship, and I know Mina has been on AEW television kind of a lot lately, but again, you have a Stardom wrestler versus an AEW wrestler for the AEW title. You gotta think the AEW person is going to win this match. I wouldn't mind seeing Mina Shirakawa as AEW World Champion. Again, she is very entertaining. I just don't see it happening. Alright, we got for the AEW TBS Championship and the New Japan Strong Women's Championship, Mercedes Moné versus Stephanie Vaquer. This one, I absolutely think that Mercedes is going to take this, because Mercedes has in the past worked for New Japan Pro Wrestling. She was able to appear in the crowd, but still appear on camera during All In last year because of the partnership between AEW and New Japan. So I think because it's more likely that Mercedes appears in New Japan than Stephanie Vaquer appears on AEW television, that Mercedes takes this match and becomes a double champion. Like, you see a theme here, though, right? You see that they're kind of, in all of these matches, almost all of these matches, they're kind of booked into a corner because of the nature of this event. Again, looking forward to the matches, but it is what it is. Alright, so now we have for the AEW TNT Championship, Kinosuke Takeshita versus Mark Briscoe versus Jack Perry versus Dante Martin versus Lio Rush versus TBD. I don't know who TBD is. If I was to say who I hoped it was, I would actually say Christian Cage, who I'm repping today, just because I love that program that Christian had going on with Adam Copeland, and I wouldn't mind having Christian regain the TNT Championship so Adam has something to gun for when he comes back. That being said, Adam is 6 to 8 months away from returning to the ring, so I actually think it's probably unlikely that Christian Cage would win, even if he was put in this match. This is going to be one of the highlights of the show for sure, and it's maybe the to be determined is going to be a New Japan Pro Wrestling wrestler, just because that would make a lot of sense, but I don't know. Well, I think Jack Perry probably is going to take that match. just because I think the Elite are belt collecting. Jack Perry has been on fire lately, so that's basically what I think about that. And of course, the main event is Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay, a pure AEW event or match, but that it almost feels like that this match almost seems premature. Like it would have been, it feels like it should be a main event of a more consequential show, maybe with a little bit more build. But of course, they're going to tear the house down, and I hope and predict that Swerve Strickland wins this match and fortifies himself as a strong champion. Alright, we have the Elite, Kazuchika Okada and Matthew and Nicholas Jackson versus the Acclaimed and Hiroshi Tanahashi. That will be fun. One of the highlights of the show, Dynamite, every week is just hearing Okada call somebody a bitch. It's just, I don't know, it gets a cheap pop from me every time he says, he just like, okay, bitches. And he doesn't speak super good English, which I think is part of the novelty. He's like, oh no, I pushed the wrong button, bitches. I love that shit. I can't deny it. I actually think that because it doesn't seem that any titles are going to be on the line, that the Acclaimed and Tanahashi will probably end up picking up the win, which will probably set up a future AEW tag team title match between the Acclaimed and the Young Bucks, which they have kind of hinted at that anyway. This show is just one of those things that it's going to have a lot of entertainment value for those of us that enjoy pure pro wrestling, and I'm definitely one of those people, but it's not going to have a whole lot in terms of like long-term storylines and, furthering of AEW programs and all that. So again, looking forward to watching it, looking forward to putting it in the rear view. And that's about all I got for you this week. So, until next time, revel in what you are.